It's another day, left jab, right jab, this is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim, looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting, if you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go, I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show, this the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
2021. Here we are, boys. Another year of mixed martial arts. I'm very excited to be back in your guys' ears. Seems like it's been a long time. Obviously, we haven't had a card for quite some time. Being that we were especially spoiled, to end the year here. We've pretty much had a UFC event take place every single weekend. So to have that much time off from fights, it's been a little bit crazy. I'm sure a lot of you guys are fiending to see some scraps going down inside the octagon. I know I am, but hopefully you guys do have a little bit of a life besides the fight game, and you guys were able to enjoy, all the holidays, New Year's Eve, Christmas, or whatever other holidays you guys celebrate. Hope you guys all had a great time to end the year of 2020. I know it's been a crazy year, and but now we're back, man. We got fights to talk about. We got UFC Fight Island 7. Calvin Kattar taking on Max Holloway. It's a great fight. The fight card is stacked. Unfortunately, there's fights that are beginning to fall off the card as expected due to COVID and injuries and all types of stuff like that. Luckily, they did stack a lot of fights upon this fight card, so it's still fine right now, and hopefully we don't lose anything else. Very excited to break down this fight card here. Like I said, though, we have 3 events taking place all within a week's time span. So, after this fight card, we also got UFC Fight Island 8. We got Chiesa taking on Neil Magny. I'll be getting that video out to you guys relatively soon as well. And then we got the Big Daddy-O UFC 257. We got the long-awaited rematch of Dustin Poirier taking on Conor McGregor. I've been enjoying reading the comments on Instagram, already getting some insight to what you guys think's going to happen in regards to that fight. Of course, we got the Conor McGregor fan saying that he starches DP once again, starches him early. And then we got some DP supporters too saying DP takes over in the later rounds. I cannot wait to break down that fight for you guys, so stay tuned. All those videos will be coming out to you guys very soon. But before we get into today's card, I do want to chirp a little bit. I haven't had a chance to get inside your guys' ears for a little bit, like we said. So, one thing I recommend that you guys check out, if you guys haven't saw this video already, the UFC Best of 2020 recap show that's located on the UFC YouTube channel. They've also been putting out a lot of cool video content for you guys to watch, but I recommend this, the Best of 2020 recap. That was enjoyable. It had Bisping, Matt Serra, DC, and John Anik all just BSing around a table talking about this past year in regards to the UFC. So that was a good video there if you guys didn't get a chance to catch that already. Other than that, I appreciate everybody supporting the channel that's already subscribed here, that's liking the videos, that follow me on Instagram, mmafortuneteller_. I appreciate you guys that support my other channel, Sports Betting Weekly. That's been starting to take off as well. And there's going to be a free play given out to you guys this week going into the NFL playoffs. So for those of you guys that are also interested in sports betting in regards to other sports, please go check me out. I'll put the link to that channel here below. And shout out to everybody that's riding with me on my exclusive picks over there. We hit that Ohio State play there that they took out Clemson. Great value on the board there. So I know you guys enjoyed that. Those of you guys that are watching, you know what I'm talking about. And but yeah, back to MMA. We're gonna have some major plays coming out on these 3 events that are coming out. There's some great opportunities to make money. So you guys know the deal. You guys can reach out to me if you're interested in my exclusive plays. Before we get into all the picks here, mmafortuneteller@gmail.com. You can reach out to me on my Instagram, mmafortuneteller_, or my Twitter, if that only works for you, the MMA Teller. And I do appreciate you guys, and I'm excited for what this year has to come. We're going to make it another profitable year. and we got to get things going hot right from the jump. And that's the way you want to attack, the year. You want to start off, in the green from the very beginning. This way, if you have a couple little, downhill moments, but you want to already be up and you want to stay up. So that's what it's all about, and that's what we're going to do going into these first 3 events. So also, before we get into the fight card, one last announcement, a very important announcement that almost slipped my mind. And that is that MMA Live discussion is kicking back off a week from tomorrow. It will be kicking off the Thursday before this fight card here. And I'm pleased to announce that I have a lot of special guests that are going to be joining us. So I'm very excited for that. We're going to be starting season 2. And, MMA Live discussion will be running on for a couple weeks there as well. So any fighters you want to see join the show, make sure you hit me up on Instagram, tag them, let me know what fighters you guys want on the show, comment below here, and I'll do my best to get them on the show. And I miss doing MMA Live discussion. It's a very enjoyable experience for me. I feel like when we get to watch these fighters throw down inside the octagon, when we've had some of these guys on the show, it makes it a lot more enjoyable to watch them throw down as we get to know them more on a personal level. So excited for that to take back off here a week from tomorrow. I had to let you guys know about that as well. Also, on that show, we go more in depth into these cards, the card that's leading up, of that week. And so I'm excited to be able to hang out with you guys and have you guys pop on the live show and whatnot. So again, that will be taking place again. I know a lot of you guys have been DMing me and asking me. I actually had a fighter reach out to me saying that, he wanted to come on and that, he was a fan of the show or whatnot. He's been watching the show. So that kind of caught me off guard. Stay tuned to see who that is. This guy has a lot of promise. This guy is a top prospect in the game, in my opinion. And he probably will be kicking off the season here on the first episode. I might have 2 fighters on the first episode. So stay tuned and see who it is. I'll announce that very shortly on my Instagram. All right, guys, with no further ado, let's get right into the card. So kicking things off, I feel that we have a very intriguing matchup, man, right from the jump. Phil Hawes taking on Nasruddin Akhmedov. And Phil Hawes, as you guys know, this was a guy that was a highly touted prospect years ago when he was training with Jackson Wink, I believe it was, back in the day. And I'm talking about a long time ago, when he had failed attempts at the Ultimate Fighter show, lost his first bout on Dana White's Contender Series. And people were very confused at what to think of him. He was a decorated wrestler. He's obviously a freak athlete, has knockout power, and just continuously dropped the ball. And then obviously he has since put it together as of recently. He's been stringing off victory after victory, and particularly his last victory against Jacob Malkoun, who is one of the training partners of Robert Whittaker. A guy that some people felt he had some skills to bring to the table, but Phil Hawes showed to be on another level, got the early knockout, and it looks like the train is on the track right now for Phil Hawes. I mean, things are cruising for him, and the only problem I foresee now is that, he's fighting a guy that is absolutely no pushover and has the ability to do some things to him, that were done years ago. Like in the fight against Julian Marquez and whatnot. Nasruddin Akhmedov is a guy that impressed me quite a bit in his UFC debut against Jordan Williams. If you guys remember, he was quite the underdog going into that fight, at least leading up to about a day before the fight. And then it seemed that a lot of people were catching on to what this guy brings to the table, because all of a sudden he was the favorite going into the fight. And obviously that was the right take there, as Akhmedov absolutely styled on Jordan Williams. If you guys remember, Jordan Williams was that diabetic fighter who had a big knockout on Dana White's Contender Series. But nevertheless, Akhmedov showed that he's an absolute sniper, hence the nickname. This guy's very accurate with his punches. I was very impressed with his striking. Showed some flashes of grappling as well. Went for a couple submissions in that fight against Jordan Williams, and just overall just really outclassed Jordan Williams. And Jordan Williams is a very capable fighter, so that was impressive in itself right there. I know it says that he's fighting out of France. I do not believe that he is of French descent. I could be wrong on that. It seems like he has some type of Russian last name or whatnot, and seems to be quite the tough customer. But back to Phil Hawes. Phil Hawes, like I said, a very decorated wrestler. This guy has some real wrestling credentials, so he should be able to stuff the takedowns of Akhmedov if that's what Akhmedov wanted to do in this fight. Not saying that's necessarily what he would want to do here. I think Akhmedov wants to keep this fight on the feet and avoid the big shot from Hawes, and then just kind of outpoint Hawes and let this fight go to the later rounds where maybe he can prove to have some better cardio and just outpoint Hawes, or maybe even just touch Hawes, on the chin and wobble him up like we've seen Hawes, get done before. And if you guys aren't familiar with some of the devastating losses that Hawes has had, we'll run the tape back. The Julian Marquez was the most disgusting loss of his career. That was one where he kind of got tired in there. It was a grueling fight, and Julian Marquez ended up getting that nasty head kick as they were kind of breaking or whatnot, and Hawes was gassed out and just his hands were down, and Marquez just cracked him right in the side of the face, put him completely unconscious. The Lewis Taylor fight got finished there, guillotine choked in that fight there. Now the Andrew Sanchez fight. This was a fight. Andrew Sanchez is a very underrated fighter. In my opinion, he's a very skilled fighter. This was a fight, though. Everybody expected Hawes to come in. He was a big favorite going into that fight. Everyone was talking about how skilled this dude was, and he was, everybody knew him inside the gym, and it was about his time that he was going to start making a name for himself inside the UFC, but that wasn't the case. Sanchez, beat him up there, and but one thing to take into consideration at the time, that was only his 4th professional fight, and even though he had 2 setbacks since, he is getting things rolling here, and he has a lot more experience. He's only had 11 professional fights, and he's obviously a true athlete with some legit wrestling background, with some legit wrestling experience, excuse me. But Nasruddin Akhmedov, also only having 11 professional fights. I don't know, something about this kid, man, only 24 years old. He's really, he showed me something in that debut. And yes, there you go. He's born in Dagestan, Russia. Of course, even though he represents France, you could tell he ain't French. But this guy's been stringing off victory after victory. Like I said, the impressive victory here against Jordan Williams. This is a tough fight for me. Phil Hawes is coming in as the favorite here. We got Phil Hawes. Let me pull it up for you guys. Phil Hawes is right around -150. I don't know, man. I've been back and forth on this fight. This is an extremely close fight. I think that the value here would be on Akhmedov. I would not be surprised in the least bit if Akhmedov shows up and is a little bit more accurate with his punches. He's durable enough to take the big shot from Hawes, let this fight go to the later rounds where Hawes will slow down a little bit. And even though Hawes has some really good wrestling, if he's exhausted, I wouldn't be surprised if Akhmedov somehow ends up on top or whatnot. But if Hawes continues to put things together, we could obviously see Phil Hawes, just keep excelling his game and really impressing us. But I'm going to give a slight edge to Nasruddin Akhmedov here, coming off a big victory in his UFC debut, only 24 years old, and I think the value is more so with him, and that's the route I'm going to go there. Now, in the next fight, and real quick, guys, just to touch upon some of the fights that got scratched. Obviously, my boy Brian Kelleher's fight was scratched. Santiago Ponzinibio got matched up with the new opponent. We'll get to that. But the one that was recently scratched, or the two that were recently scratched, Rodolfo Vieira versus Anthony Hernandez, which I was very much looking forward to, and Betch Correa taking on Yanan Wu, and Correa just withdrew from that fight as well. So on to the next fight, though. We got David Zawada taking on Ramazan Emeev. David Zawada is coming off a big victory against a Dagestani fighter, and Abu Bakr Nurmagomedov. If you guys remember that fight, David Zawada was taken down quite easily, but seems that maybe he let that happen because he was very comfortable off his back, and lightning fast fashion, he threw up a triangle choke. He was actually going for an armbar, then he slid his leg across, locked in the triangle choke, and from there, that was a wrap. Of course, Nurmagomedov was distraught. He was crying in the octagon or whatnot. I mean, you can't blame the guy. Was excited for that fight, and he blew it there in a fight that he probably should have won. Zawada hasn't necessarily been that impressive throughout his career. The two losses to Danny Roberts and Jingliang Li, the Leech. Didn't look so good there, but two skilled fighters. The Roberts fight was obviously closer. He's coming into this fight as a 2-1 underdog. Ramazan Emeev is a guy that tends to win his fights. Does have the loss there against Anthony Rocco Martin, a tough fighter. But Emeev is a guy, like I said, that goes in there. He's extremely well-rounded. He's a very polished fighter. He's going to be very strong in the clinch. He's going to hold you against the cage. He's capable with his striking. He's not necessarily going to go in there and astonish you with some skilled type of striking and knock the dude out and whatnot. I mean, he definitely has the ability to do that, but that's not really what he's been doing. He just goes in there and he's been stringing off decision after decision. 33 years old, and like I said, just a very polished fighter. Even the Anthony Rocco Martin fight was a close fight there. He kind of let go, but took out Sam Alvey, Alberto Mina, and not a lot of big names here. Not a lot of big names, really, when you run the tape back. Redeemed himself in his one loss. But this is a guy that can really just control the fight and get a decision victory. Zawada, on the other hand, is a guy that definitely has some skills in the mat. Not impressed with his striking, quite honestly. Just really not that impressed from what I've seen from him on the feet. Has a little bit of power, I mean, if he does connect, but I think his bread and butter is his grappling. And, one of the few German mixed martial arts fighters. I got to assume that Emeev is going to go in there and play it smart and avoid that submission. He's going to try not to let this fight turn out to be, turn out to be some type of brawl. He doesn't want that to happen. Emeev wants to keep things calm like he always does. Have a very slow pace in the fight where he'll just control Zawada. And maybe as they get a little bit sweaty and more tired, maybe he tries to get on top, uses some ground and pound and whatnot. But again, Zawada does have a decently impressive record. This guy is a professional fighter in the UFC. You never know. The fight game is crazy. I'm sure he's extremely motivated for this fight. And I'll probably be pulling for him, bearing there's no action on Emeev for me. But I think we know what we're going to see here most likely, and that is probably a decision victory for Emeev Ramazan. And take a look at the line here real quick. Ramazan Emeev, yeah, minus 255. Well, coming in as quite a favorite there. But like I said, just has to avoid that submission, and I think he probably wins the fight there. All right. Got a pretty cool matchup coming up in this next fight. A guy in Mike Grundy, who is coming off a loss, but a loss to one of the top prospects in the game, Emeev. And Mike Grundy is a guy, in my opinion, coming out of the UK. I think he's one of the most decorated wrestlers we've seen come out of that region. He's definitely the real deal with his wrestling. This guy can take you down. He can control you. Carries a lot of power in his hands. Needs to sharpen up his technique. He needs to be a little bit more fluid with the striking. Definitely has the power there, but I think he needs to tighten up his striking and not try to rely so much on the knockout. And needs to learn how to put things together. As we saw in that fight against Movsar, we saw what the difference was. Movsar was quicker in there, more fluid and more technical. Nick Lentz. Nick Lentz is a guy that's been around the game forever. This is a guy that you do not want to sleep on. I'm telling you guys right now, Nick the Carney Lentz is the real deal. Over 40 professional fights. I'll give you guys a quick, funny story here. A quick story. Bear with me if you heard me say it, but I'll make it quick. But I grew up right down the street from American Top Team down here in Coconut Creek, even the old Top Team. And one time I bumped into him on the road. He was hitting a U-turn. I was making a right turn, and our cars almost hit each other. And we're sitting there waving, what the fuck, looking at each other. And I'm like, yeah, it looks like Nick Lentz. And I'm looking at him, and as I get behind him, I see his Minnesota plates. And we're right there by American Top Team coming out. So it's like, he obviously just came from practice or whatever he's doing. And funny little story there, Nick Lentz. You know what I mean? Because I don't know, maybe it's not the right guy to pull over on the side and handle business with. I don't think that would have went good for me. But Nick Lentz is a guy very well rounded, extremely tough on the feet. He could strike with you. He'll pressure you and whatnot. He'll try to close the distance. Good grappler, good jiu-jitsu, good wrestling. Just an overall solid fighter here. This is a great test for Mike Grundy. I think Mike Grundy will be a little bit stronger with the wrestling. A little bit. I'll give him a little bit of an edge there. But Nick Lentz may have a little bit of an edge in regards to the BJJ and whatnot. So you mix it all together, and I'm really intrigued to see how things play out there. Nick Lentz is going to have a world of experience over Mike Grundy here. Grundy will have the 4-inch reach advantage, which may play out good for him if he sits on the end of his jab. And we'll take a look at the line here. Grundy's coming in right around a -155. And, like I said, man, coming off that loss against Movsar, don't look too much into that because Movsar is a guy that could be wearing gold in a relatively close time frame here. I mean, and not too long, within the next couple of years. I truly believe that. I think Movsar is a very skilled fighter. Obviously, his last fight fell through. I was really anticipating that fight, and hopefully we'll see him in there soon. But, the point being is, Grundy is no joke. And I'm going to give Grundy the slight edge. I think he's going to have a fire lit under him right now. And he'll know that taking out a guy, Nick Lentz, is a good accolade and a good feather to put in his cap. And Nick Lentz, that'll be 3 losses in a row if he loses this. So, this is a fight he really needs. And you look at the guys he's lost to, Arnold Allen, Charles Oliveira, top-level talent here. Took out Scott Holtzman and Gray Maynard as of recently. Scott Holtzman, that's a good victory. David Tamor, this is a good fight for him right now. We'll see where Nick Lentz is after this fight. He's 36. Mike Grundy's about to be 34, so he's no spring chicken, got in the game late. And this is a fight that he needs. And I'm going to take Mike Grundy to win this fight. I think that his grappling, his strength, being able to control the fight a little bit in the clinch, I think that he'll just be the fresher fighter. And maybe he lands a couple of those heavy shots that he does have. So, interesting fight. Let's see how that goes. My pick is Mike Grundy. Got 2 undefeated prospects squaring off here. Punahele, Soriano taking on Duško, Todorović. I'm a big fan of both these guys. I like what I've seen from them since they made their Dana White's Contender Series debuts, and have had their careers progressing. We'll start off with Duško. Duško is a guy, he's been extremely hyped up since his Dana White's Contender Series fight. That fight was a little bit of a lackluster fight. Wasn't that exciting, but you could definitely see the skills that he brings to the table. I don't think there's much of a question there. And then in his last fight, I mixed him in a parlay in his last fight against Daquan Townsend. People thought that Daquan Townsend was going to come in and spoil the party, and I wasn't seeing that at all. And Duško showed that he does have a lot of potential. He really showed up there in that fight. So he's 10-0 now, only 26 years old. Then you got Soriano. Soriano is a guy, coming off a big win against Oscar Pichota. The Polish fighter. But, the fight that was actually pretty interesting to me was the Jamie Pickett fight. The Jamie Pickett fight, we saw Soriano throwing bombs in that fight. You saw what he brings to the table, in that fight when you run the tape back. Soriano's going in there to take your head off. This guy carries extreme power, and obviously has had some big knockouts throughout his career. I think this is a very interesting fight here because Duško is a guy that he's very comfortable on the feet. He's very, very comfortable in the feet, and he tends to drop his hands. So, Soriano is going to have some real opportunities to put Duško out. That's what people were saying in regards to the last fight with Townsend. Townsend throws those big wild hooks. Maybe he connects. And Duško, he's so comfortable in there. He's bound to get caught. Every fighter is going to get hit with something hard eventually. So, you're dropping your hands like that, you better be careful. But from what I saw from Duško in that last fight, the way he pushed the pace, mixed in the grappling, I've been very, very impressed with him, and I'm going to take him here. But I know some of you guys are probably going to go the route that Soriano's going to be throwing bombs, and you're going to take him there. But I'm going Duško. This guy has just shown me that he's an absolute professional, and I do expect some big things from him. So, he's still young. What is he? 26 years old, I believe he is. 26 years old. He's going to continuously polish his game up. This would be a big win here. The winner of this fight is going to be, really starting to make some noise here. But again, I want to go in on that again and let you guys know, Soriano, this is a guy that has some real knockout power, and I think that he's going to be getting a lot of knockouts in the octagon throughout his career. This guy is a guy that really, he's going to please the UFC brass. This is a guy, win, lose, or draw, they're going to want to, continuously throw in there. on some of these big cards because he delivers. He brings the fight, and he goes for the knockout. Sharpening up his iron over here, Ian Heinisch. And you guys know, man, the Hawaiian fighters are extremely tough. They're durable, solid chins. We've seen him eat some punches already like nothing. So as far as the line goes, we got Duško right around -155. So I expect Duško to try to push the pace, use more of the pitter-patter type of style, while Soriano is going to be going in for that knockout. And it's a fight that you do not want to miss, man, in my opinion. It's an intriguing matchup. But again, Duško is the pick there, man. I'm picking Duško to win that fight. All right. This fight right here snuck up on the card. Not trying to throw shade at these guys, but both of them coming off losses. Jacob Kilburn versus Austin Lingo. Not exactly sure why this isn't the first fight of the card. I mean, they're both coming off losses. They need to prove themselves, in my opinion. But they do bring the fight in a sense. Austin Lingo is a guy that's a very tough customer. 7-1. Coming off that loss against Youssef Zalal, a pretty respected prospect in the game. He was pretty much outclassed in that fight, man. Youssef Zalal was kind of joking around in there, basically like it was a sparring match, just kind of outclassing Austin Lingo. But Lingo was constantly pushing the pace. He's an extremely tough fighter. Does carry some power in his hands. He's decently strong in the clinch and whatnot. But Youssef Zalal was able to get in on his hips and take him down quite a bit in that fight. Definitely has to polish up his game. And then you got Jacob Kilburn. Jacob Kilburn got completely outclassed by Billy Quarantillo, Billy Q. That was a fight that you could look at it in two ways. I would say that, Jacob, you got to give him a little bit of respect for the fact that, he survived that early onslaught. If you guys remember, I mean, he was really in a tough situation from the first bell. As soon as the bell rang, man, he was getting mopped up on the floor, but he was able to avoid the submissions early. Eventually, Billy Q did get a hold of him, and he submitted him there. But this kid showed to be a tough fighter. He's gonna get another opportunity here. Hopefully, he can make the best of it. And this is a fight that I do think the line may be slightly off. Although I'm still gonna say that I'm gonna lean Austin Lingo. I think Austin Lingo should be a little bit stronger with the grappling and with as far as pushing the pace, in the clinch and whatnot. I think he'll be the stronger fighter. As far as the striking goes, I give a slight edge to Lingo too, a little bit more power and whatnot. But at the same time, Kilburn's, he's decent on the feet as well. So we'll have to see how this fight plays out. I do think the line is off on this fight in the sense that I don't know if I could really trust Lingo here, right around -220. I think Kilburn is another guy that also is going to have a fire under his you-know-what, and I think he's going to try to come in here and spoil the party for Lingo. But, one of the more overshadowed fights in the card, but we'll see how it goes. Either way, it's going to be a big win for either one of these guys, so one of these guys is going to be a very happy fighter come fight night. We got Sarah Moras taking on Vanessa Melo. Vanessa Melo, 10-8. Almost has lost as many times as she won and has been having a very hard time getting a victory as of recently. If you look at the three losses, though, all of them are pretty talented women there, man. Irene Aldana, Tracy Cortez, and Carol Rosa. All decent fighters. Sarah Moras also, look at the record, 6-6. I mean, these are tough records to look at, man. But both these women are getting another opportunity here. Sarah Moras is a girl that's very tricky off her back. If you play around in her guard, she has very flexible hips. She'll throw up an armbar on you or a triangle very, very quickly. Vanessa Melo is a girl, decent jiu-jitsu as well, decent striking, but just neither of them are really on the level. As far as the line goes, I was a little surprised to see Sarah Moras coming in at a -250. Just, how it is with her, man. She goes in there and she gets beat down quite often. And we'll take a look at some of the girls that have really beat her down. She has a hell of a heart. I mean, she's going to continuously walk forward like this. She has that zombie look in her face. She's going to continuously walk forward on you. But if you get in on her hips, she'll flop right to her back. But again, you got to be careful down there when you're playing in her guard. But we'll take a look at what she's been doing as far as her 6-6 record. Eubanks put a beating on her. Macy Chiasson put a beating on her. Everybody thought Macy Chiasson was this big thing based on that. Talita Bernardo, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, came in, got a victory over her. Lucy Puttilova looked good against her. Andrade, we know the deal. She's the real deal there. And then as I said, as far as her ground game being up to par, trust me on that. I mean, pulling off arm bars over Peggy Morgan, over Ashley Evans Smith, got the arm bar. And then it got a big win over Liana Jojua. That was a big win for her there. So she did show up for that fight there. I think that she should come in here and she should get the victory over Vanessa Melo. We haven't seen anything from Vanessa. On a line like that, I don't know if I could trust her. I get it, and I see her path to victory. I just, based off some of her performances, it would be hard for me to ever touch her at a line like that. A women's mixed martial arts bout that could play out very closely. So, slight lean on Sarah Moras. Now we got Justin Tafa taking on Carlos Felipe. Got the big boys throwing down. A lot of you guys like to joke that Carlos Felipe, he's my boy. Goes by the nickname boy. And this is a guy that I said I liked from the beginning. Even when he lost, he lost that first fight to Sergey Spivak. Showed to have some holes in his grappling and his wrestling and whatnot. And his cardio was questionable, but I think mostly based off, his physique. Carries a lot of extra weight in there and somewhat off that performance too. I mean, he was looking like he was getting a little tired in there. But, he did bounce back and looked very, very good in his last fight against Yorgan De Castro. Yorgan was coming in as a big favorite. Carlos Felipe spoiled the party. Carlos Felipe is a very decorated Brazilian boxer, and you saw it in that fight. This guy's hands are nasty. His overall kickboxing, it's good. His entire kickboxing game has came around. He's a dangerous fighter, in my opinion, on the feet. He's a dangerous fighter. There's going to be certain guys that are going to be able to exploit his grappling and his cardio. I think, you throw him in there with certain guys and forget it, maybe that's a reach anyway, but just to give an example, you put him in there with a guy like Curtis Blades and he'll just push him over and forget about it. But, this is a fight against a guy in Justin Tafa, who Justin Tafa likes to exchange on the feet. This is a guy... we've seen him, stand and bang with a lot of guys. We saw him take out Juan Adams in his last fight. We saw him try to stand and bang with Yorgan De Castro. Got knocked out in that fight. That was a nasty knockout, as you see him towering down there. But Tafa is willing to deliver a fight. So this is going to play out perfectly for Carlos Felipe. I think Felipe will be able to use his hands and maybe get an early knockout here. But again, these are big dudes. Anything can happen with these guys. Maybe Tafa somehow connects. Don't be shocked. Sometimes you guys, you look at some of these heavyweight fighters, you think, oh, they have no chance. But, when these guys start throwing down, and I'm not even talking about like a one hit, lucky shot or whatever you want to call it. I'm talking about even just they start to clash, and these big boys are throwing leather, and you see one fighter start to impose his will on the other fighter and just kind of take over the fight because they're just big boys. And I don't know if you kind of catch my drift on that. We've seen that recently, actually. And if Tafa goes in there and starts throwing some big shots, maybe all of a sudden it changes, the projection of this fight. But I don't necessarily expect that. I think that Felipe will be more skilled in there. And like I said, the boxing is nice. The head movement and the fluidity of his striking is nice. And I would like to see him work on his cardio a little bit. I would like to see him lose a little bit of that extra weight. There's no reason why he can't lose that weight. Maybe look a little bit more like this. And, maybe get this a little bit more than that. But, either way, I think he's going to have a big victory. And I'll be rooting for him. He's coming in almost as a 2-1 favorite. It's all right. I mean, I like Felipe to win that fight. I'll take Felipe there. Now we made it to the main card. We got Carlos Condit taking on Matt Brown, two legends in the game. What do I need to say about a fight like this? Carlos Condit, a lot of people were sleeping on him in his last fight. Obviously, he's been having a tough time pulling off a victory. People thought Court McGee was going to go out there and handle business. Not me. If you guys remember my prediction, you can run the tape back, check my Instagram post. I thought Carlos Condit was going to be just a little bit more fluid and a little bit more skilled on the feet than people gave him credit for. Court McGee is a very tough guy. he walks forward and whatnot. But I thought Carlos Condit would try to impose, his striking and style on him, and that's exactly what he did in that fight. That was a very, very impressive victory. Dropped Court McGee. Not a lot of people drop Court McGee the way that he did in that fight, and it was just great to see Condit get back in the win column. Now Condit's 36 years old. I mean, he's hanging on to the fight game, by a thread. He doesn't have a lot more time in the game, but this is the perfect fight here. Matt Brown, 40 years old, a guy that always delivers. Huge fan of Matt Brown. You guys know the deal with Matt Brown. Coming off that loss to Miguel Baeza, that was actually a play of mine. As you guys know, I'm heavy on Baeza. I like that kid a lot. But he looked good in that fight. He hurt Baeza at times and actually had me kind of stressed out for a couple moments there. Before that, took out Ben Saunders and Diego Sanchez. Took out Diego with that nasty elbow. This was actually right before that elbow. He caught the leg, if you guys remember, and threw the elbow over. But Matt Brown is a guy that's been around the fight game forever. A couple weeks ago, I was running some tape back on the old Ultimate Fighter, watching him on that show. He was always just a hard-nosed type of dude, no-nonsense type of guy. This guy is a good striker, heavy power. People underestimate his grappling abilities, his wrestling ability. This guy used to train with the Cuban national team, which is it's no joke. And this is a guy that's just constantly put his, however you want to say, put his nose to the grind, whatever. This guy's a hard worker. And I believe even at the age of 40 years old, this guy's still putting in the work and could still show up on anybody. Condit coming in with a 2-inch height advantage. The reach is identical. I will say sometimes I think people sleep on Carlos Condit's grappling skills. He's tricky down there. People think that he doesn't know what he's doing for some reason. He's very tricky with his grappling. He's a decent fighter. Yeah, we've seen him get controlled by some guys. GSP's controlled him down there and whatnot, a couple other guys. But he is capable down there. I think Matt Brown may be a little bit stronger in that regard, but I give the edge to Condit as far as being a little bit more skilled and maybe being able to pull something off down there. Great fight, man. Really, really just a great fight. I've been back and forth on this. I'm going to go with Carlos Condit, though. Carlos Condit being a little bit younger here and, coming off that big victory, I think that he strings off another victory against Matt Brown. Matt Brown, creeping up in the 40s, man. It's a tough look, but like I said, he's still in there throwing down. And Matt Brown is susceptible to being finished if you hit him with the right shot to the body or whatnot. Sometimes he gets hurt with those body shots. Either way, man, this is a fight that I'm tuning in to as a fan. Big fan of both these guys, so really looking forward to that. Look who's throwing down once again. Joaquin Buckley taking on Alessio de Chirico. A lot of you guys know I had a big parlay with Joaquin Buckley. I had him parlayed actually with that guy, wasn't Tony, the heck was his name? That Bellator fighter. Black Ice, excuse me, his name's slipping my mind right now, but Black Ice over in Bellator, the very highly decorated wrestler who's making a name for himself over there, grabbed him at an early line. That was a play that I had late last year. Buckley delivered. A lot of people thought that Jordan Wright was going to give Buckley some problems. Obviously, Jordan Wright, the more traditional martial arts type of striker. I saw big holes in Wright's game that was going to play right into Buckley's game, as far as with the hands being low and that karate type of style. I knew Buckley would be in his face throwing heat. That's exactly what happened. I also had a prop bet that night for him to get a finish there. And that's exactly what he did. This guy is a finisher, man. Look what he did to Impa Kasangane. The loss to Kevin Holland, he was looking good in that fight, taking that fight on short notice before he got caught. And Kevin Holland is the real deal. Great to see Buckley getting all this action and making some money and making a name for himself. Doesn't cut a lot of weight. Then you got Alessio de Chirico. This is a guy that's actually, even though he's coming off 3 losses, this is a guy that's talented on the feet. This is a guy that can connect on anybody and put them out, in my opinion. But this is a fight that's going to play out perfectly for Buckley as far as it being a striking matchup. It's going to give him another opportunity to go in there, get a knockout, and that's kind of the route that I see happening. De Chirico losing 3 fights in a row, all by decision, losing to Kevin Holland as well. So he is tough. He's durable. Got victories over Julian Marquez. That was a split decision victory. Marquez is a talented fighter. Oluwal Bambusi, whatever you want to say that name, that nasty knockout artist. So he was able to be the matador there, and was able to knock out. Excuse me, was able to avoid the power of Uluwal, and was able to actually get a knockout himself there. So, like I said, he does have some skills. But I'm going Buckley. Like I said, man, this guy Buckley, forget it. This guy Buckley has been coming in, just wreaking havoc. And as we take a look, some of the work that Chirico has been putting in. Yeah, I'm excited for this fight. I know that Chirico is definitely going to be pumped up for this fight. I mean, he obviously knows the momentum that Buckley is bringing into the octagon, so he better be up to the task. Otherwise, it could be another nasty, nasty knockout like we see happening here. As far as the line goes, Buckley right around minus 265, which is where he was at in his last fight against Wright. So I think Alessio Chirico is more of a threat to Buckley than Wright. I think Chirico can hang in there and survive to the later rounds, maybe a little bit more likely for that to happen. And then he could also use his striking there to try to make things a little bit more tricky. He is a very talented striker. Maybe it goes to a decision. But again, Buckley, taking Buckley, man. Now, speaking of nasty strikers, Santiago Ponzinibio makes his long-awaited return. He's taking on the Leech. Santiago Ponzinibio, he's been out for a while. It's funny, I bumped into him at a Titan FC event a couple years ago, and he hasn't fought since then, so you can imagine. And I remember saying to him that night, I got a picture with him and whatnot, and I was like, oh, when are you going to be in there again? When are you fighting? And this was even around the time where he wasn't even, it wasn't that long in between fights, but he was saying he was hurt, he was banged up back then. So it's been a long time. He's obviously having some complications with injuries and some other things. He's 34 years old, 27-3. He's been putting in work. I mean, he's coming off a nice knockout victory over Neil Magny. Not a lot of people do that to Neil. You guys know Neil's been on a tear. The Leech, though, also coming off a fight with Neil Magny, but a loss on his end. And that was a fight that was so puzzling to me because he was going in as quite the favorite, the Leech. I was confused on that. And has a nice knockout over Zaleski dos Santos. Had the knockout over David Zawada. We talked about him earlier. But in my opinion, I think that the Leech has been consistently overrated and overhyped. I get it. He's a Chinese fighter that's a little bit bigger. He's not like some small Chinese guy. He has some decent size in him, and he's exciting to watch. He goes in for the kill. He goes in for the knockouts. But, I mean, is he really that skilled? I don't know. If he gets a victory over Santiago Ponzinibio, then, I'll be eating my words, but I don't see it happening. I see Ponzinibio going in there, styling on him, and, if he's going to sit there and just make this a striking match like it probably will play out to be, I think Ponzinibio lands leg kicks like that, nasty leg kicks, and his hands will be quicker than Jingliang's, and I see him winning that fight. But again, I am a fan of the Leeches. I think he's an exciting fighter. I like the energy that he brings to the game, and I don't know, fighting from training at a China top team, I feel that this is a guy that's been perennially overrated, and good luck getting a victory over a guy in Santiago Ponzinibio. I don't know if I see that happening. But again, at the time, I didn't see him beating Zaleski dos Santos either, and he did. So, it's the fight game. The Leech carries power, definitely has a puncher's chance in there, but we'll see how that fight plays out. Ponzinibio gets a victory there, and we'll start getting his name mixed up in the top of the division for a potential title shot down the road. Just needs to be a little bit more active. All right, now going to the co-main event, being that the other co-main event got scratched as we talked about. Now we got Omari Akhmedov taking on Tom Breese. Omari Akhmedov, little disappointed in him. In his last fight, I did have him to take out Chris Weidman. That was an official play of mine, a small play. Grabbed him at great odds, underdog odds. And I was counting my chickens in that fight before the third round, because obviously, if you guys remember, Omari was winning that fight and then started to gas out. And he basically blew it at the end of the second round and then the third round. Still a very close fight, but he has problems with his gas tank. That's been consistently an issue with him throughout his career. He takes his foot off the pedal at times, but he is a powerful striker. Has some good does have some good striking, some good power, some good technique. The grappling's there. He's very well rounded. This isn't a guy you want to just dive in on the leg and try to rip down. I mean, he'll snatch your neck up. I mean, he's stout. He's strong. He'll reverse you. Tom Breese is a guy that people have fell in love with from a long time ago. Has had troubles staying, or fighting inside the octagon consistently. He's had some mental issues, but this is a guy people have loved. I mean, look at his frame, 6'3". This is a big boy for the middleweight division, and when he puts it together, he's nasty. Coming off that nasty finish against KB Bular. He was making his UFC debut and really wasn't so proven. Before that, lost to Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen just showed that he can outclass him with the grappling. So that's something that you want to take into consideration. Does Akhmedov, try to use some of his grappling skills to get this fight down to the mat, where maybe he can exploit some of Breeze's grappling and whatnot, like we saw Brendan Allen do. I think the longer this fight goes, the more it's gonna benefit Breese. I really am a firm believer that Akhmedov has issues with his cardio, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. He's just done it time and time again. And I'm going to take Tom Breese, actually, for that exact reason right there, for the cardio, when this fight hits the later rounds. Even if Akhmedov's able to use some of that grappling early, I just don't see him being able to consistently do that for the entire fight, unless he gets an early finish. Otherwise, he's going to get tired. Breese is so talented with the striking. This kid really has some promise, and I think that this will be a good fight for him here to get a big win over a guy in Omari Akhmedov. And I will slightly edge, or maybe even a little bit more than slightly edge. I'll take Tom Breese to win that fight, but a close fight. And be careful with the grappling. And look at Tom Breese here. He kind of reminds me of one of those kangaroos. Those kangaroos that are all jacked up? Looks just like one of those guys. I mean, this guy has a real frame on him. And has a lot of potential. Needs to work on the grappling, though. Hopefully he's grinding with some real legit grapplers inside the gym. Now you guys know what time it is. It's time for the main event. 5 rounds in the featherweight division. Max Holloway taking on Calvin Kattar. Max Holloway, need I say more, man? Max Holloway, a legend of the fight game. One of the best featherweights to have ever done it. Coming off a loss against Alexander Volkanovski. Obviously, it's a very, very questionable loss. A lot of people had Holloway winning that fight. I can't argue with you there. I did end up making some money on Volkanovski that night, and that was a beautiful night for me. I think I went 4 for 4 in my official plays. But a lot of you guys were arguing me on the point that Holloway won that fight, so I should have lost that one small play I had on Volkanovski. But no matter how you want to spin it, Holloway looked great in that fight. And Holloway, for him to lose the way that he lost in the first fight against Volkanovski, to bounce back and look the way that he did in that rematch, really, really showed a lot to me. That showed that he can go back to the drawing board, work on things, and that even though he's only 29 years old, he's been through a lot of wars. There's been some issues with him. You guys know what I'm talking about. Remember, there was some weight cutting issues or whatever. He was all messed up, slurring his words the week of one big fight for him, and he's had some issues. But you know what? To see him go back to the drawing board and show up the way that he did in that fight, what was very impressive to me. He puts a pace on his opponents like no other. This guy, I mean, he's had some, at points in time, he's had records with the striking, what he's done inside the octagon. Doesn't put everything into one shot, which is really put, a pace on these guys, man, for 5 rounds. He tends to fight for 5 rounds, man. So 25 minutes of him just in your face, pitter-pattering you up. We saw what he did to Brian Ortega. That was disgusting. But now you got a guy in Calvin Kattar, the Boston finisher. They took away his old nickname, but Calvin Kattar has looked so impressive to me personally. What he did to Jeremy Stevens, what he did in his last fight against what was his name, the Hawaiian fighter, Dan Ige, who was a very talented fighter. In my opinion, Kattar really handled that fight from, I don't want to say start to finish. I guess Ige had a little moment there in the 3rd round, but it was a very, very impressive victory, in my opinion, for Kattar, just for what he did, man. He looked good in the first 2 rounds, and he was just kind of on cruise control in the 3rd. But his hands are nasty. His boxing is so sharp and so crisp. And I don't know. I'm really, really interested to see how they match up on the feet, man. When push comes to shove, and we're watching this fight live, is Kattar going to stunt on Holloway the way he's been stunting on a lot of these guys? You guys know the deal, man. His boy Rob Font's coming off a big victory. This is they're fighting out of a gym has really been putting it together. But for the most part, the New England Cartel or whatever it is, for the most part, it's been these two guys really as the focal point of that gym. But these guys are no joke, and you could tell that they're both the real deal. Obviously, I had Rob Font to win that last fight. Not a lot of people did. He was a slight underdog, but I'm a big believer of both these guys, and that's why I'm gonna let you know right now. I'm taking Calvin Kattar to win this fight. I am taking him to win this fight, and he's coming in right now right around a plus 140 dog. I think that his boxing is going to be more crisp than Max Holloway's. I think it is. Max Holloway has great cardio. I know he'll be in his face from start to finish, and that's more so what I worry about. I worry about Holloway taking over the later half of the fight, or just looking as good as he did. Like he looked in his last fight. But still, I think Calvin's up to the task. I think Calvin will look very good. I could see Calvin potentially finishing Holloway. Yes, I know Holloway has a crazy chin. I know he's very durable, but he's taken a lot of damage. And Kattar is a guy that's super accurate and nasty with the striking. And I just think there'll be some opportunities for Kattar to put him out in a fight like these guys are going to have in an absolute war. So that's how much of a believer I am in Kattar's hands. So, I'm going to take Calvin Kattar to win this fight. And obviously, I'm a big fan of Max Holloway's as well. I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to be upset at the fact I'm taking Max. Excuse me, that I'm taking Calvin. I know there's a lot of Max fans out there. And looks like Max is doing well over here. And yeah, this is an awesome fight, man. I'm sure Mini Blessed will be on the scene. Maybe not. I don't know, actually, if he'll be taking the trip, but like I said, I'll just say it one more time, man. I'm a big fan of Max Holloway's. I love the energy he brings. He's a happy-go-lucky type of guy, and he's doing his thing. And but again, I'm taking Calvin Kattar. He's fighting out of the New England Cartel, right? The New England Cartel. So that's gonna wrap up this fight card breakdown. I appreciate all you guys that stood with me to the end of this video. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe. Like I told you guys, MMA Live Discussion will be kicking off a week from tomorrow. Not this Thursday, but the next Thursday. I'm super excited, man, to get the fights rolling on the big screen over here. Super excited to be chirping in your guys' ears on my Instagram as the fights go down. And I will be doing some fight companion shows. Maybe we'll do it for the Conor fight. But I will be doing them periodically. Once again, I'll let you guys know. Make sure you're following me on Instagram, mmafortuneteller_. If you guys are interested in working with me for my exclusive plays, reach out to me for pricing. I'll let you guys know my pricing, and I would love to work with you guys. And that's gonna pretty much wrap things up. All right, guys, signing out. Teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.